Peace and much love. This is Emily Raw coming live to you from the Little Kalama for one more special transmission before we begin Dreamwalker. Today I'm contemplating the archetype of the Council, which is actually different than our previous archetypes because it requires multiple people in order to exist. And contemplating the benefit of council-like process when it comes to dream work and when it comes to just community building in general. The big question of how do we govern ourselves? And the question of how does a council-like format support a dream walker, a dreamer, to be able to see beyond their own limited perspective and see deeper into the meaning of their dreams. So, yeah, this is something I'm very passionate about. Some of my background, I started a project called Dream Council 10 years ago. And it really came out of my curiosity being, coming up in the West Coast psychedelic music and arts scene. I was really curious how to weave the inspiration of the community-based living that I was experiencing with the dream work and transpersonal psychology that I had studied both in school but also at my time at the Temple of Isis. And so I was really curious about how to weave dream medicine into council-like formats. And I remember, shout out to Yosef Stone, because Yosef, back in the day, this was like 10 years ago, was doing these crystal councils where he would gather people to discuss the medicine and magic of crystals. And I thought, oh, that's so cool to get us all together in a circle with a topic and just start talking about what we know about the topic to learn from one another. It seems simple, but it's so profound, especially compared to an upbringing where in school, we all sit in rows, in desks, in lines, and the teacher stands in front of you, and you all stand sort of receiving the barrage of words that the teacher is yapping at you. And so with that, let's take a sip of our drink or take a breath so I'm not doing the same thing. And really think about that and think about not what we learned in school, but how we learned how to think, how we learned how to think in school. And part of how we learned in traditional U.S. education systems, at least, was to sit, be quiet, listen, only speak when you're told. The teacher knows everything. You don't know. You have to show the teacher that you know, or else you're going to get a bad grade and you're wrong. And if you're not perfect, you're bad and you're not going to get your basic needs met. But if you're right, then you're good and you're perfect, and then you get your needs met. And so this is ingrained so deeply into so much of how we navigate through the world because we've been conditioned this way since childhood. So the council-like format, it's an older format about how to learn, teaching us how to learn. It actually doesn't matter what you talk about in the middle of a council. I mean, it does, but it doesn't matter what you're thinking about. It's how you're thinking about it and looking face to face at other humans through a space of equanimity. Now, not every circle has the same equality of responsibility. Oftentimes circles have facilitators and moderators who are more experienced in or are more intentional in the topic and managing the conversation. And so, but it's with the idea that the leader, the teacher, quote unquote, is holding the role of being the one to get up and talk in front of everyone and being the one to get the ball rolling. But ultimately, they're not, they don't have more power or less power than anyone else, or more knowledge or less knowledge than anyone else. They just have different knowledge and are doing the service to be the one to organize things. And this is also very different than how we're taught through elective government, where you see people vying for and asking for votes from the community to be the one who gets to, to be the one who gets to make the decisions, where in many, many indigenous cultures all over the world, the concept is very different. The leader, the facilitator is, everybody else says, maybe that guy would be good for the job. And that guy goes, really? Me? Oh, well, all right. I guess I'll take one for the team and do the extra work. And it's a deep honor. It's an honor to do this work, and I'll do my best to make sure I take care of everybody. So that's really some of the ethos in the Dream Council, is that even though there are facilitators or moderators, they're doing extra work to be in service to the wisdom of the whole group, which is equal and equally valuable. Now, as far as dream work itself and the power of the council, I've seen people enter into Dream Council with no clue about what their dream meant, but this dream is haunting them. And through just sitting with 4 or 5 other people and talking about the dream, and the other people asking questions about it, and they're forming curiosities about it, and giving insight, which we'll talk about in the Sage Week for Dreamwalker, but the idea of if it were my dream, and really like respecting the sovereignty of a dreamer by saying, if it were my dream, I would feel this way about it. And what happens when a council passes a talking piece around, where this talking piece, this item represents honoring those who hold it as the one who's speaking, and the listening piece is the item you hold when you're listening to somebody else talk, but the talking piece is passed around this circle as a symbol of respect, of mutual listening and mutual respect. When you're ready to talk, you pick it up, and when you're done, you place it back in the center for somebody else to pick up. And this is another principle that you can see all over the world. In indigenous cultures, the concept of a talking piece around a circle, so that, again, when you look at traditional, quote, education or modern education systems, if you have something to say, you have to raise your hand amongst other people, and the teacher is the one who chooses who gets to talk, which again gives the teacher more power over the conversation than if the talking piece is placed in the center and someone picks up that piece, equally has the choice to pick it up and share. So there's a lot of these principles and concepts that we're modeling, we're practicing through dream work that can be applied in so many areas of your life. And it's the power of humans in a circle with a talking piece discussing a topic with an intention for healing can be so profound. And I have found, because I've been facilitating dream councils now for 10 years, what I find is that the education that I've received through sitting in dream councils for 10 years is profound and is deep. And I didn't learn through books, although I do read books. I love Robert Moss's books. I love reading Carl Jung. I love not Dan Millman, James Hillman's work. Toko Turner is incredible. There's a lot of amazing books out there to read about dreams. That's not where I learned about these tools. This isn't where I learned about what I only know such a sliver of thus far. What I've learned is through the voices of the dreamers who have chosen to show up in that container and share their wisdom and share their stories and share their vulnerabilities. And I've learned an incredible amount from myself, which is really deeply part of the dream work process, is learning from yourself that you are your own greatest teacher, that you, within you, hold keys of wisdom that unlock whole worlds in not only you, but in the consciousness and dreams of your community. And I'm living proof. Just by being who I am and choosing to love what I love to do, I inspire others to dream. And I show up in people's dreams. And it's so funny because oftentimes when I'm doing a lot of dream work and sharing about it, people will call me and say, I haven't remembered my dream in years, but I remembered last night. Or I saw you there in my dream and you woke me up in my lucidity. And I think, well, then great, my work is done. I've modeled something. And it's the same with the archetype of the council or a counselor. You being a council person is that you're modeling a greater way of how to think about decision making, about creativity, about consciousness, about community, and about this world. So let's do it. Let's meet up tomorrow night, as this is being recorded, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. You can go to emilyra.com to learn more. And I hope that this message meets you in peace and at the right time. And I look forward to seeing you in council soon. There it is. Peace.